Welcome to the Damascus Road podcast. On the road to Damascus, Paul had a radical encounter with Jesus and his life was changed forever. That is what we hope and pray for here. Now, on to this week's episode.
Okay, so people have said a lot of nice things to introduce me this morning, but my name is Renay, if you haven't met me before. And there were some roles and things that were also mentioned, but one of the other things that I am is that I am a mother. So one of my two kids, thank you, honey, happens to be and almost, where's she at? The one that you hear groaning, that one's mine. Almost 7-year-old little girl, right? She's so big and she keeps getting bigger. So what you need to know, pivotal, about what that means is that I have a surplus of all things: pink, sparkly, rainbow, unicorn, mermaid, and princess themed. Okay? We got an edge on the market, seriously. If it is a cultural item that is powerful and glitters, chances are, even if it means it is a stuffed unicorn the size of a Great Dane, not kidding, we have it. And we do have that unicorn that is the size of a Great Dane, just to be clear. This may sound perfectly normal for those of you familiar with the development of normal little girls. But for me, as the mother of this particular little girl, this is not normal at all. Let me explain. When the play with Barbies, Disney Princess Everything, dress up in shimmery clothes that are like 5 sizes too big for you and drink tea mobile, like swung past my childhood, I completely missed the bus. Okay. While the other girls my age were dreaming of Prince Charming, I was spending my evenings glued to the TV, dreaming of Snake Charming. Oh, yeah. I mean, what is not to love about that? Come on, people. Whew. For those of you who did not grow up in the 80s like me, or perhaps did grow up in the 80s but were inattentive to the cultural niche of professional wrestling, this mulleted, mustachioed man is none other than Jake the Snake Roberts. Andre the Giant, was in Princess Bride, fought this guy. Like, that's the era I'm talking about, okay? I'm pretty sure that watching him casually saunter into the ring with his 12-foot python hanging around his shoulders every single match was the beginning of my lifelong long for mullets. No, that's not what I'm saying. Lifelong love for cuddly, cold-blooded creatures. Let's be clear. I do love mullets, but I also love snakes. I love snakes. At 5, I remember going to the zoo and getting to hold my first python. I was about 3 feet tall. It was about 6 feet long. So it was like the same proportions as Jake the Snake even. After that, my interest really started to build momentum. You see, I'd go out in the woods and I would catch snakes in old mayonnaise jars, and then I'd bring them home. And most of the time, I would get them off the kitchen table and remember to release them not in the house, outside the house, before either of my parents would get home or see. Most of the time. As a kid, I'd find snakes seemingly everywhere. Hey, maybe they found me. And I took every opportunity I could to cuddle with whatever I caught. Just to be clear, this was not like a childhood thing, like this kept going. My appreciation for snakes never stopped. Okay, so we've been here for a while as a family. We moved here to Tucson in 2007, okay? So let's fast forward to 2007, the year that my husband and I, he's over there, he gave me the water, good guy. When we moved to Tucson, one of the reasons, seriously, on the list of pros, my pros, one of the reasons I was so excited to move here was because of the sheer quantity of different snake species that live in the wild in Arizona. Okay, most exciting, 14 different species of rattlesnake. How cool is that? You guys don't know how lucky you are. Okay, we have timber rattlers in West Virginia, where I'm from. 1 species of rattler. Just 1. Like 14. 1. Guys, this is a big deal. And I think I caught one once, and that happened to be the one that I forgot to take off the kitchen table. It's part of family lore. It was in the mayonnaise jar. No one was hurt. But I don't know that I've ever actually had an encounter with a rattlesnake. I'm not certain that I ever have. So, we moved to Arizona, and I had to live here for 3 whole years. 3 years before I would ever even see a snake in the wild, let alone a rattler. So then, when I finally did see a snake in the wild in Arizona for the first time, it was a Sonoran night snake. Okay? Look it up on Google if you want to know what a picture of it looks like. But the problem was that I was several months pregnant with my first child. I was on a walk with my husband. So the only reason I didn't pick it up was because it was mildly venomous. And if it would have been just me, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But I didn't want the mildly venomous snake to bite me and then hurt the baby. So I didn't touch it. But I didn't stop having my passion for snakes. Here is a picture of that baby a decade or so later, holding a cute little gopher snake. Look at it, it's so cute. And then this is me holding the same snake. Just so cuddly. And then me holding my son's pet king snake, Rex. Look at him. We had him for like 5 years. We just released him like about a year ago. Oh, he was so cute. I would wear him while I did laundry, just like Jake the snake. He's a little smaller though. And then here's the rattlesnake we found in our yard last spring. It was just a little baby. It was only this long. It wasn't that bad, but yeah, it's a rattlesnake if it has those bands, those black and white bands on the tail. So look for those things. So, and I forgot to tell you. There's a video of me trying to carry this rattlesnake on the end of a tree branch down the street to put in the wash where, I loved how Megan in the message a couple weeks ago, she talked about like the chaos dragon being playful and like playing in the ocean. So I wanted it to play in the wash, just not in front of my front yard, I wanted it to be safe to play and frolic. So here's a quick little video. But we eventually, I had to walk him probably about the distance from here to the church that's across the street. That's about how far I had to walk him on the end of a stick. And then I put him in the wash. And the thing is, I've done this 3 times so far where there's not a giant rattlesnake, but a rattlesnake in the yard. And so I have to take a stick and do that. We finally bought a snake grabber. We have a real snake grabber with the pinchy thing on the end. So now I have a real tool that will not, as I think, I felt so bad. That rattlesnake, when we finally put him in the wash, a piece of his tail had come off and I was I didn't want to hurt him. So I have a safe way for me and Snake to, get to where we need to be. So all of that to be said, when I was asked to give a message this summer and I had a chance, I had a selection that I could choose from, but when I had a chance to choose to teach on a passage that happened to include a bunch of snake handling, literal and figurative, I just could not. I had to. Okay? All right, so today is the 3rd message in our current teaching series, Chaos Dragon. And over these past few weeks, we've been exploring this imagery that the early biblical authors used to see what it has to teach us about the world and God and ourselves. In the first week, and now these are super truncated summaries. If you haven't been here, check them out. But in the first week, Megan taught from the creation story, and she highlighted our first encounters with Genesis with the Tannin. That's the Hebrew word that's used in the ancient writings. The dragon from the waters, and the Anahash, the clever snake of the field that spoke to Eve in the forbidden tree. And how these forces, the Tannin and the Anahash, can influence the context around them. And then last week, Ryan taught from Genesis as well, focusing on deepening our understanding of the snake dragon imagery, especially as it developed the narrative of Cain and Abel. And it showed us how people can become agents of the snake, agents of chaos themselves. But today we're getting out of Genesis, but we're certainly referencing it a lot. But we are in Exodus this time, and we're zeroing in on Moses and the Exodus story, and considering through looking at how this imagery emerges there, just what the biblical authors are suggesting about who's partnering with whom, who's an agent of what, who our rivals really are, and what hope there is for us as people living and working through chaos in a chaotic world. Okay, so the root verse for our message today is from Exodus 7, verses 8 through 12. We might sway back and forth and check in with verses and events that came before and after, but this is the root. Exodus 7, 8 through 12 is where we're really going to focus our efforts today and our understanding. So if you haven't opened up yet, Exodus 7, 8, and 12. Who can hear me?
It's mostly because we're trying to record, and I'm just not sure it's coming through that. So let's have you use this so that people like Derek can listen.
Oh.
We record it so that people who aren't here can follow along. So, yeah, I'll just interrupt here. There we go.
Thank you. Woo! It's a live one. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so here we go. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, then you say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Okay, folks, I'm excited. And it's not just because we have people handling snakes, which is still one of my favorite things about this passage, but I am excited because I'm not going to lie, this passage is like a vitamin, okay? It is like packed. It's a chunk of a story, but it's packed with words and images that are super dense with like theological nutrition, especially if we look at the words in the original Hebrew. There's so much we can get out of this. So let's start in verse 9 where it says, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle. So he's talking to Moses. When Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, then you, Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. So for starters, let's focus on my favorite, the snake. Up until now, as Megan noted in the creation story, and as Ryan illustrated in the story of Cain and Abel, when people have interacted with a snake in the biblical story, a certain Hebrew word is used pretty consistently for the snake, a nahash. So if we're following that pattern established so far, what would we expect from this? What would happen in verse 9? That Aaron's asked to throw down his staff, and given that he's a person in a chamber with other people, the staff would just turn into a nahash, a snake. Isn't that what we would expect? We'd also expect that because we've seen this setup before. In Exodus 4, when Moses sees the burning bush, he's asked to take off his sandals and all of that, think Prince of Egypt. When he's by the burning bush and he hears his mission from God to save his people from Pharaoh, when Moses is asked God what he's going to do if they don't believe him, he's asked by God in that moment to throw his staff on the ground. And voila, the Hebrew text says it turns into a nahash, a serpent. And fun fact, in that story, Moses runs away because that's what most people do when they suddenly see an nahash and they did not expect to see an nahash. So that's the kind of reaction we're looking for. But, this is a big but. A few chapters later in the story, in this pre-game huddle that's happening between, God and Aaron and Moses, just before the snake handling showdown with Pharaoh, a nahash is not the word the biblical authors use. Instead, they use the Hebrew word tannin. We saw this word and heard this word in Megan's message 2 weeks ago. This is the watery sea dragon beast that is made and dwells in the chaotic waters in the creation story. Even the biggest nahash, in real life, the biggest nahash in the world, the green anaconda, so far is recorded, the biggest snake, only 30 feet long. That's a big snake, okay? So far, okay, I'm going to go back to dinosaurs because that's the best tannin I can think of. So far, the longest tannin or sea dinosaur ever discovered, the Shastosaurus, was surmised to be about 70 feet long. Okay, that's twice the length of the biggest anaconda. So it's bigger. It's a lot bigger. So why use tannin in the pre-game huddle? We've been using a nahash this whole time. Why are we using tannin? Why are the biblical writers suddenly leveling up their word choice? And furthermore, by using the word tannin, what is God trying to clue Moses and Aaron in on during this pregame huddle? Okay, so after the huddle, in Exodus 7:10, during the account of the actual showdown, in our English translation, the word snake is used again. But did the biblical writers use the word nahash there either? No, they did not. Verse 10 reads, and it became a tannin. So they're told before the game, it's going to be a tannin. During the game, it's a tannin. Every other time it's been a nahash. What is going on here? It did occur, not just in literal size, but there's something happening here in figurative meaning. A snake just became something really, really big, like a Shastasaurus or a blue whale. And even if it's not literally big, it is still some kind of big deal. So they just did their Tannin handling in Exodus 7. And we already know that Moses, when God asked him to do the same thing, he ran away scared when the Anahash handling in Exodus 4 happened. So don't you think that like he'd turn it into a Tannin, like something that's twice as big or twice as significant, and Pharaoh would run away too and be even more scared than Moses was? You would think. And this is a big but he did not. At least that's not what the biblical writers narrate. He's not even recorded as acting scared. He's not even recorded as acting impressed. Instead, Pharaoh is depicted as not even missing a beat, summoning his magicians to show what Pharaoh might have thought was a comparable feat. And then in verse 12, it describes what his magicians do. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Pharaoh's magicians throw it down, and in the original Hebrew, their staffs become Tannin. Now, if this were a story about showing that God wins something akin to a Pokemon match, I don't know about you, but I would have expected their staffs to emerge merely as a Nahash, right? Okay, God is bigger, God is like that's the point, right? But I don't think that this is what the biblical authors are getting at. I think there's something bigger going on here. It's not just a match. It's not just a battle. There's something of more like cosmic proportions going on here, and it's been building for a while. In Exodus 2, when we first meet Moses, he's first hidden. And then at 3 months old, he's sent off in a basket on a lick and a promise to suffer the chaos of the tumultuous river Nile. All of this happens, and he isn't even named yet. When this baby washes up into the place where Pharaoh's daughter finds the basket, he's nursed for a long time, and then finally, when he's older, he's weaned, and he becomes the daughter's son, and then finally she names him Moses, which means out of the water. He was like unformed, unnamed, undefined for a long time, and then he's pulled out of the water, right? And he's given a name. Which means, Moses means out of the water. That's what his name actually means. So as Ryan and Megan talked about over the last 2 weeks, water represents the deep, the abyss, the chaos. While his wild first 3 months of life were surely chaotic in and of themselves, Moses' name suggests, at least a little, that there's something being reframed here. Moses is a product of the chaos. Something beautiful, something good can come out of the chaos. It can be produced by uncertainty. Something good can be produced by even suffering. Chaos is not inherently the rival of God. This cosmic significance is developed more when God is giving Moses his plan, the snake handling battle as part of that plan in the beginning of Exodus 7. God tells Moses in 7:1, "See, I've made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother will be your prophet." So you remember like the first message where like Megan drew up here and she like was making this comparison of this to this. Okay, so I don't have a thing to write with. Oh, actually I do. Exciting times. Here we go. Hopefully they work. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you something here. All right. So Moses was drawn from a product of the chaotic waters like God, and then matched with someone who believes he is a deity, like a god, Pharaoh. Okay. So this is not art class. Okay. We have Moses. We have Pharaoh. Okay. All right. So Pharaoh is like a god, and he rules over the fields where Cain killed Abel, much like the snake that Ryan taught about last week. Moses, with God's help, commands his prophet, his mouthpiece Aaron, similar to how Pharaoh summons his wise men and magicians. Okay, so we have important people. Okay, and then they have their helpers. I'm just going to make them little. And they have magic wands, right? They have their magic wands. Okay, here we go. And so Moses, with God's help, commands his prophet, his mouthpiece Aaron, similar to how Pharaoh summons his wise men and magicians. And yet, while Aaron's staff becomes a Tannin, the chaos dragon, when the magician's staff turn into multiple Tannin, multiple Tannin, chaos dragons also, they are not matched. In this picture, God uses the chaos dragon, the Tannin, for good. And it swallows the whole Tannin of those who wish to do harm. So we have God using Tannin to swallow up the other Tannin. So ours is more powerful for some reason. I don't know why. Okay. When the plagues, so that happens next. We know that part of the story. So when the plagues, a kind of chaotic event, are struck across Egypt, each one a unique poke or reference to Egyptian deities of the time, Pharaoh has to ask Moses to ask God to make it stop. Each time, beginning with the snaky standoff in chapter 7, Pharaoh's Tannin is diminished again and again, swallowed whole again and again. We know how the story goes. Finally, after Pharaoh loses his firstborn son in the last plague, he gives permission for the Israelites to be freed. But in one last heartbroken fit of rage, he sets himself and his soldiers out against the Israelites while they flee and catches up to them while they're on the banks of the Red Sea. In Exodus 14:16, God tells Moses to raise his staff. The Tannin, there we are again. He tells him to raise his Tannin out over the sea, over the chaos water, and what happens to the Red Sea? It divides. God tells Moses a little later on, after Pharaoh and his army are contained within the road that parts in the Red Sea, to stretch his hand out again, and then Pharaoh and his soldiers are swallowed by the depths, swallowed by the abyss, an image and realm of the chaos dragon itself, just like Aaron's staff had in Exodus 7, swallowed up the staffs of the magicians. So after looking at this story and just a few little vignettes around it, I'll ask the questions again. Who seems to partner with whom? Who seems to be an agent of whom? Who rivals, really? Who rivals whom? And what hope is there for us as people living in and working through chaos in a chaotic world? What does the imagery of the Exodus story teach us about God, ourselves, and our circumstances? The first is that creation requires power. And our power resides greatly in our choices. That's what we've got. We have the power to choose, that free will thing. We get to choose what we decide to offer with what we have at any given moment. Choosing to offer what we have toward what God desires is powerful. Choosing to offer what we have toward whatever we want, destructive, selfish, or not, is also powerful. But God has power over creation and chaos, both passive and active alike. And no chaotic state, no choice is too big, too overwhelming, too impossible for God to divide up and swallow down or make a way through. Maybe you're like Moses, and there's a little chaos in your backstory. Maybe you've made poor choices, and you think that making things right will be just too hard, or it won't even make a dent in whatever it is you're trying to fix. Maybe you've been hurt, and you're pretty sure that forgiving someone or forgiving yourself is just too much to take on and not worth the trouble you think it would set in motion. Maybe you're sick. Maybe somebody that you love is sick, and you have no idea how to even start or how to keep trying to heal or keep trying to meaningfully support healing in yourself and others so it can actually happen without you getting in the way. Maybe you have a task in front of you, a job you've taken on, and you've been convinced recently that maybe you bit off more than you can chew, and you don't know if you can maintain what's being asked of you if you stay the course. Or maybe you're in a wilderness and you're not sure what the course looks like at all. If any of these are you, I challenge you to stretch out and offer whatever it is that you've got and see what God can do with it. So like I said before, Moses' name means from the water, from the chaos. Like Moses, we can come up and through and out of whatever our chaos was or is, and we can choose to use whatever we have, even if all we have is our own pain, and we can become an agent of creation. We can choose to help make it better. We all can participate in the act of creation by offering what we have, even if it seems weird or janky or unglamorous, like a simple shepherd's staff or an interest in a certain film genre or even a passion for, kindness toward snakes. I don't know. Sometimes even our prayers and anguish and suffering are all we have to offer. I know I really feel this one because for me personally, this last year, especially the last 6 months, has been one of the most unpredictable, painful, disillusioning, and humbling seasons of my entire life. It just would keep coming. One thing after another thing after another thing. Even yesterday when I sat down to write this message, I was like racked with physical pain and I wasn't expecting it. But sometimes that's what you have. That's what I've got right now. And it was from that, with God's help and borrowed moments and the help of friends, that I was even able to write this message for you today. Moses came from the chaos and he served God through it. There's no chaos too massive or too painful or too personal that he can't create with what we choose to offer him. Throughout Exodus, Moses and Aaron are both asked to stretch out their hands just before God did something miraculous with what they offered, no matter how staggering or overwhelming the circumstances were or how small they felt. God loves what he's created, and he created us. God is listening to us and desiring to create with what we have to offer him. He's reaching out his hand and he's asking us to reach out ours in trust, offering what we have and who we are from exactly where we're at. So to close today, I want to try something. All right. So everyone, if you feel comfortable, I really actually want you to do this. I want you to close your eyes. Just close your eyes. That's got to happen first. All right. And now when your eyes are closed, everybody's eyes are closed so nobody can see anybody else right now, okay? It removes the embarrassment factor. So close your eyes, and now I want you to reach out your hand, just like God asked Moses to. Pick one, okay? He says right hand a lot. So, but if that's not free, put out your left hand. So reach out your hand, okay? And I want you to kind of imagine, like, you know how people look into crystal balls and they can see things? So I want you to kind of imagine whatever you have to offer God right now. I want you to visualize that thing. So if it's your pain, if it's your sickness, if it's the people in your life, if it's what you do for a living, I want you to, whatever the thing is that you have to offer, okay? Whatever you have to offer God right now, I want you to visualize that in your hand, okay? Happening like in a little crystal ball or something in your hand. Even if all you have is your own pain. Even pain is something, and something is not nothing. So I want you to visualize that in your hand, and then I want you to keep your hand up, and I want you to pray with me. God, we love you. And sometimes all we have is what we've got, and that's all you ask. You ask that we give you the things that we have, give you who we are and what we have in a given moment to work with you. You want us to stroll with you in the garden. You want us to partner with you to make this world a better place. Lord, I pray that you help each person here today. I pray that you would help them see you seeing them. I pray that they would feel your presence. I pray that they would feel your love. I pray that they would feel the hope that you offer, no matter how chaotic, no matter how painful, how unpredictable their life may be and what they're facing. I pray that you would come alongside them and hold their hand up and share in the vision and help them do the things that they so much and passionately want to do for you. Thank you so much for how you come alongside us. Thank you for the hope you give us, the reprieve you give us, the rest you give us. And I pray that you would give that to the people here today as they move forward in their lives in this week and their summer. I ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you for joining the Damascus Road podcast. Our mission is to follow Jesus together by being with God, loving everyone, transforming people, developing leaders, growing new ministries, and changing the world. You can find out more about us online at DamascusRoadTucson.com.